That was the voice of Ognjen Stevanovi, a Yugoslavian artist, both revered and condemned for his psychologically disturbing visual images and association with the Arcane exploits. His designs were diabolically inspired by real-life incidents and inscrutable beliefs. Stevanovi's upbringing was perpetrated by extreme members of the Chechnik movement, an organization whose initiative was to establish the Greater Serbia through ethnic cleansing. This association led to Stevanovi becoming a member of the Illuminati for a brief period, working his illustrations into the consciousness and aiding and abetting their New World Order intervention. His infamous reign in the arts began in 1968, when he debuted his most recognized work. Response was mixed. Critical reception went from heralding it as a subversive form of sorrow, a connection with the deceased past, whilst others thought it was misogynistic, despite the ambiguity. From this point onwards, Stevanovi's craft began escalating to violent form. In 1981, he desecrated his own body and exhibited himself at an art demonstration. He almost died from a self-inflicted ordeal and was left disfigured. Stevanovi was claiming that the days of canvas and brush were diminishing and a new order of catharsis was upon us. Along with his abstruse abilities, he was becoming heavily consumed by Kabbalistic texts and indulging in ritualistic ordeals, the latter which intensified his deranged integrity. He was the prime suspect in what was dubbed the Sabbath slasher case, where 12 teenagers were killed through brainwashed communion. He was arrested again in conjunction with the death of Miljan Petrovic, a well-respected curator and magician who was acclaimed in his hometown of Yugoslavia. Both times, Stevanovi walked free due to lack of evidence. Despite the revulsion, he continued to graft his ideologies into exhibitions that he started to curate. He was inviting convicted murderers and Satan worshippers to showcase their beliefs in art form, much to the disgrace of the public. Stevanovi distributed a manifest amongst his loyal esoteric circle, which contained abnormal commandments, a breeding ground of malevolent knowledge, for which he accumulated on his travels around the world for what he described as the search for something beautiful. His career came to a premature end when he was arrested for violent assault and incarcerated at Sremska Mitrovica prison in Serbia. During his internment, anonymous artists and curators started opening imitation ceremonies. Many of these events ended in dreadful consequences. No arrests were made, and the curators were unable to be tracked down. In 1992, a riot ensued at Sremska Mitrovica prison. Stevanovi escaped and disappeared. His absence initiated a further rise in fame, as the mystique surrounding his escape made further profanity to the Serbian government. It wasn't long until his influence found a new home.
Sir, would you please tell me where you are?
I don't know.
Can you please give me more information? What has happened?
I've foreseen the new age of Aquarius.
It was dubbed the Haruspex Mound, due to the rumors that it was once a burial mound for divination convention. There is a story, passed on through generations, that the ashes from the executed Bakewell witches were scattered across the defunct mound, and this gave it the inclination to grow. Furthermore, this historical omen seemingly predicted the depressing future ahead. When St. Helen's house was used as a school, 7 children were abducted to these woods and slaughtered. An artist, who was living as a hermit in the woodland area at the time, was accused and found guilty of the murders, and was sentenced to be hanged. Years later, a séance was held for the grieving parents of the murdered children of St. Helen's that ended in the death of the spirit medium who was conducting it. The concerning realization is that these tragedies have continued to perspire in the area to the present day.
Just tell us where you are. We can help.
It's all so beautiful, so tranquil. It all makes sense.
Please, James, you do not have to do this. James?
Death is so beautiful.
James Thornley was a fine arts student, studying at the University of Derby. In the weeks leading up to his death, James was spending an enormous amount of time in the woods alone. He was using the setting as the basis for his final major project. His body was found in a terrible state. He appeared to have committed suicide through self-immolation. The ashes seemed to have formed a surreal preservation over his physique. Around his body were remains of various animals, many of which were seemingly slaughtered via bizarre sacrifice. His classmates were growing concerned by his withdrawn behavior. He frequented that he was indulging in a surreal videotape, claiming he discovered it via decoding an address found in the manifest of an obscure artist. The tape is a form of psychological cleansing, something purported to be related to the past exploits of the Illuminati. What this all ultimately proves is either people are becoming infatuated in imagination and blurring lines with reality, or something beyond our physical comprehension is going on.
So the nights are getting darker sooner, the weather's turning gloomier, Halloween is looming large.
You are being invited to visit a...
We're a group of artists, invited by a mysterious curator, are staging an exhibition of work designed.
At the turn of the millennium, Stevanovi's remains were found partially submerged on Lim, a major river which flows through Serbia and various major countries. The news should have brought comfort to his detractors, but Stevanovi's supporters immediately criticized the validity of the corpse's identity. Many believe Stevanovi's death was a hoax, and he continues to live and thrive in the arts. Others say his death encouraged anonymous cult followers into dangerous trepidation, and they're conjuring things that should not be. The nights are getting darker, and the Arcane will thrive. Now, repeat after me.